What was your I can't believe this is happening right now moment of your life? I got a message one day from a stranger that said there's something we need to talk about that is important to both of us. I made some time for a call shortly thereafter, and the stranger called me. Hi, you don't know me, but I think it's important that you know that my husband is sleeping with your wife. I know this because he left his Facebook logged into our computer at home, and I see everything they have been chatting about for months. Boom. Life upended. I was good to my wife. Really good. Then my life exploded. Children were involved, and families destroyed on all sides. That was the start of the worst year of my life. Over the next 6 months, I lost 40 pounds of weight, and probably shortened my life by 10 years due to stress. Bonus points. It turns out that in my appointed position with the local government, I had given the guy an award the year before for his service to children. Good news. It's all good now. It was bound to happen. As I learned later, she was a serial cheater before me, so it's not like it wasn't going to happen at some point. I'm with a great person now, and family life is great. I was in Rio. My mother had just given some money to a homeless dude. Few after that, a wild burglar appears, holding a knife against her chest. She gave him her purse, and he ran away. The homeless dude then stood up and said something like, "She's a nice woman. Do not steal from her." They started arguing, and the purse came flying, somersaults and all, back to her arms. Taking a phone call from my twin from the hospital to say her husband didn't make it after she'd found him unresponsive in VF and had done CPR on him while waiting for paramedics. All the time her kids were at my house, I was looking after them, but she didn't want me to tell them as she wanted to tell them herself. Hardest day of my life, a million times harder for her. Some days I still can't believe he's gone. I was swimming at a lake last summer. My sister has 7 kids, so I was helping her keep an eye on them. A little boy was bouncing up and down beside me. I thought the kids next to him were with him. Then I realized they swam away, and he was by himself. But he wasn't play jumping. He was trying to stay above water. After 4 seconds of him going under, and seeing that he actually wasn't tall enough to be in the 4-foot water, I reached over and grabbed him. Kid almost drowned. Turns out he was about 3 years old. He puked up a bunch of water all over me, and I held that stranger's kid in a hug so tight. The parents were 20 feet away with their backs turned. It took me a good 10 minutes to find them after standing there in the lake screaming for them and asking random people if that was their kid. Could not stop shaking with the realization this kid cold died, and I just saved him. I had to leave after that and haven't been back to that lake since. People, watch your kids please. Tons of kids die every year. Takes 1 minute of distraction. Edit. So I should mention the lake was Keystone State Park. They have no lifeguards on duty except for the holidays. Swim at your own risk. It was only June, and from what I heard later, kids drown there all the time. The parents were grateful, but I think they were extremely embarrassed, as they should be. When my lawyer called me to tell me I won custody of my 3 kids, then an hour later my ex calls looking for her child support check, and I got to tell her I wanted it. Just woke up and noticed my notifications blown up over this comment. To answer a couple questions, no, I did not ask for child support. I didn't want to jinx my good luck, and she wasn't working anyway, so the cost of going for it didn't justify. This was in 1998, in Virginia. I live in South Florida, so I went up and brought them down. The main help and my biggest supporter was my girlfriend at the time. She has been the superstar in all this. She was willing to help me raise them. Of course I married her, and we had 1 kid together over the years. Together 23 years, married for 20. The other 3 are grown and moved out already. The day my daughter was born, my sister showed up unexpectedly at the hospital. I assumed she was dropping by to see the baby. Nope, my dad was literally next door in the heart ward. This was a huge place, and it was totally by chance. There were double doors between the baby and heart ward, and he was on the other side with complications for heart failure. The emotions were so strong and conflicting I had to turn them off, and I'm not sure they ever really came back. I woke up from what felt like a dream, kind of like When you are half asleep and someone is talking to you, and you know that they're there, but your mind is somewhere else. I was woken up to a man asking me what my name was, and my first thought was, well, that's a pretty good question, isn't it? I wasn't quite sure what my name was. I was still in a dreamlike state where I couldn't really grasp the physical world. Then he asked me what day it was, to which I thought I couldn't tell you what day it was most days of the week. And then it clicked. It was Christmas Day. The guy waking me up was a paramedic getting ready to load me into a helicopter. My face was so broken that I couldn't open my eyes or make any sound more than a moan. But I wasn't in pain. My next thought was damage control. I got ducked up somehow. Still don't remember what happened 12 years later, but I was being taken care of, and I still have all my teeth. First thing I did when I realized I was in bad shape was lick all my teeth to see if they were there. The moment where I thought I can't believe this is my life right now happened once I landed at the hospital. I always would think, when watching shows such as and the like, that it must be embarrassing to be injured and have a room full of people strip all your clothes off. So there I was laying on a table which felt like cold like metal, in a neck brace, uncomfortable, but as naked, with people evidently scurrying around me. I chuckled to myself in my head how crazy it was that I was now that person naked in a hospital, but I didn't care at all. I was just comforted that I was being taken care of. Ski patrol told me I got knocked out and slid 200 yards face down, unconscious. No one saw the accident because so few people were riding on Christmas Day, but they could tell by the tracks that I had left. I don't remember what happened at all, however. Needless to say, I wear a helmet when I ride now, which everyone should regardless of skill level. TL. Doctor, don't smash your face on a mountain at high speed. Edit. Mobile autocorrect. Formatting. Checking a regular guest out of my hotel when I realized he was having a stroke. Mumbling, repeating himself, couldn't even sign his name. Called 911 so an ambulance could get him to a hospital. The moment it really hit was the next day when his wife called and said I saved his life. Like, dude, I work at a hotel. This was not something I ever expected to hear. Or when I was 12 and sang with the National Children's Choir at Carnegie Hall in New York City. Even that young I knew this was a big deal. I was completely exhausted, having worked 32 hours. I sat down in a diner to eat. I get my fisherman's platter and this little guy in a booth across from me starts choking on a chicken finger. I get up, start doing airway clearing as I send my EMT for my equipment in the ambulance. I had 1 shrimp and 2 scallops. This poor kid is going grey. I can't get the obstructing piece of chicken out. Finally my McGill forceps and airway kit arrive, and I managed to get some out, but most fell into the lung right bronch. The local volunteers arrive with no paramedic, so now I'm stuck going with them. I go to the hospital and basically kiss my dinner goodbye on the way out the door. My EMT stays behind to clean up and gather our crap. I take the ride in and thankfully the boy was fine, but I was ready to pass out from lack of food. I do my paperwork and my EMT shows up. She says we have to go back to the diner. I walk in figuring they want me to pay my bill, and I couldn't believe they made me a huge surf and turf dinner. No charge. The owner ended up being a great friend 4 years till his passing. I couldn't believe though that kid started choking right as my meal came. What timing? My EMT said I looked like someone kicked my dog as we walked out, and my plate got further and further away. Finding out I had epilepsy all my life when I was 45 years old. Hearing I have cancer 2 days after my 28th birthday. Couldn't stop thinking I'm too young for cancer. When the nurse handed us our first child ready to take her home, I looked at my wife and immediately thought, shit, we have to keep this thing alive. I was in the hospital for my dad after he got into a fender bender. Everything was going fine. He only had a sore neck and some minor scratches up until the doctor came in, shut the curtain behind her, and told him we found some spots on your lungs when we scanned you. Completely unexpected and heartbreaking. Waking up to find messages from my friend saying he couldn't take it anymore and he was saying goodbye. I've never tried to call someone so quickly in my life, and during the whole thing, was just this can't be happening right now, as it was the first time I'd ever experienced anything like this, let alone the fact there was no warning. He's okay now, but please, if you are going through anything, talk to someone about it, and my DMs are always open to anyone that wants to speak. Please everyone, take care of your friends and family, even strangers, because that might just be what helps someone, even if you never know. When I woke up with my head lodged in between the car seat and the wall of the car after being hit by a drunk driver, I was asleep in the very back of my Toyota Sienna while my mom was driving, and I wasn't wearing a seatbelt during the time of the accident. Luckily for me, I managed to get away with just a scar to my forehead, even though I was flung across the car after being struck. I'm still flabbergasted I got away with just the scar. I was working at a group home with people who have physical and mental disabilities. We were all eating lunch when a client suddenly was choking. He turned blue and I thought, shit, here we go. I performed the Heimlich, and he stopped choking and started to breathe. That was scary. I found my husband unresponsive and called 911, did CPR. Paramedics came and took over. After 30 minutes they told me he was gone, and there was nothing they could do. Tons of friends and family came over right away. For some reason it only hit me when one of our good friends told me not to worry about food or lawn care, as she was setting up a food train lawn care for me. That was the oh shit, this is really happening moment for me. Diagnosed with an incurable cancer at 33. I was given 2 months to live. 1 year later, almost, and I'm still kicking it. As sick as I was, I'm glad I'm standing here being the badass I am. My prognosis is much better now. I won't beat this, but it's really given me a pashito, live life and love big. That would probably be having a conference call with my boss and hours telling me I was one of 50 people being laid off due to restructuring, while my now ex-wife was in the other room packing her things to move out of the house. I live in an apartment with a balcony overlooking a canal. One evening my partner and I were out on the balcony having a smoke. There was nobody around except for a drunk guy stumbling down the path along the canal. My partner commented that he'd fallen if he wasn't careful, and sure enough, he did. We immediately called an ambulance and my partner ran outside to look for help. The guy was twice our size, and if we'd tried to help by ourselves, we all would have drowned. Emergency services arrived in less than 10 minutes and pulled him out. He lived. Still gives me shivers to think about what would have happened if we hadn't been outside. Finally got together with my crush. I can't believe this is happening right now. Drank too much and couldn't get it up. I can't believe this is happening right now. It's probably not a big deal for most people, but that moment was when I got promoted from a $13 an hour position to a $22 an hour position after only being with the company for 6 months. I still can't believe how lucky I'm to have jumped so far up the company chain so early on. My moment was when I drove my recently murdered little sister's car off the crime scene. Once the police released it into my stepmom's custody, she had been killed in said car. Edit. Thank you everyone for all the love and support. When I was 14, just playing the newly released Arkham City, the doorbell rang and the police came to our house in order to tell us our dad died in a car accident. Just ran into my room to have the loudest and longest holler of my entire life. I was 16, walking through my school's gym when my little sister said that dad had been in a car accident on his way back from a business trip. Mama called and said all he had was a broken leg and he'll need surgery to fix it. The next day, I'm grocery shopping with my grandma when we immediately abandoned the cart and quickly drive to the hospital. I walk into one room. My mom and little brother are on the floor. My little sister ran towards me, and my dad's aunt whispered, "I'm sorry, but your dad didn't make the surgery." I howled, bled from the nose, and passed out. This upcoming March will mark 7 years. I hate reliving that moment. Edit. First of all, whoever gave me Reddit gold, thank you again. All of the messages from everyone have really made me feel okay, especially since I never had this big of a post. Forgive me if I haven't replied, but know I'm thinking of you, and I thank you all. My dad helped me combat my anxiety, and without him, I'm struggling terribly, but it's his spirit and people like you guys that help me power through. Thank you guys again. 3 and sorry I neglected a few details. I was trying to make a quick comment since I was pressed for time for a doctor's appointment, but my dad died during a simple procedure because a blood clot formed in his knee, let loose during surgery, and caused a pulmonary embolism, one where my dad was too weak to recover from. Open bracket.